required conduct. The proposed final judgment, John, requires that NAR do some things. As always, when the Department of Justice comes out with a judgment or an agreement, they're going to want you to do certain things, right?
This is the part that the Department of Justice really likes, because it specifies exactly what needs to be done. And let's just go through the various steps, because it's going to have application to all of our viewers. The first one is, within 5 business days after entry of this final judgment, NAR shall repeal the ILD policy and direct each member board that adopted rules implementing the policy to repeal such rules at the next meeting of the member board's decision-making body. So what we have here is the fact that not only NAR, but NAR has to direct its member boards to also repeal that ILD policy that you discussed.
So, first of all, there was an IDX policy, and the Department of Justice says nothing's wrong with the IDX policy. Then there was a VOW policy, and they never really agreed with that, right? The Department of Justice never really agreed with that, but it was out there. And then NAR tried to simplify the combination by creating a combination of IDX and VOW, something new called ILD, Internet Listing Display. And when they did, the Department of Justice filed suit against NAR for violations of the antitrust laws. And they fought for a number of years, and we got this proposed final judgment. And what NAR has agreed to do, what the Department of Justice has mandated, and NAR has agreed to do, is first, and it's within 5 business days, is to repeal the Internet Listing Display policy, and any local MLS or association that adopted it to repeal it as well within a time frame that is consistent with the meeting of their next governing body, right?
Correct.
So first, repeal the ILD in all its forms at all levels of organized real estate and MLS.
Exactly.
Repeal the ILD. First required conduct.
Right. And remember, in your history, the next one to come along was the VOW policy. So the next required conduct here is, within 5 business days, NAR shall direct member boards that had adopted rules implementing the VOW policy to repeal those rules.
So not all of the MLSs adopted the VOW policies because they were afraid of the Department of Justice. Only some of them adopted the VOW policy. And now what's being required is that those that did adopt it repeal that original VOW policy.
Exactly. So we have 2 now that are repealed. The next required conduct is, within 5 business days, NAR shall adopt the modified VOW policy, where we'll be spending a lot of time going through that particular policy.
So Exhibit A, that we've talked about a couple of times, which is the modified VOW policy, which is the VOW policy that is to the liking of the Department of Justice and agreed to by NAR, the modified VOW policy. So now required conduct of this judgment would be that within 5 business days, NAR adopt the modified VOW policy.
Right, and they go on to say that NAR shall not change that modified policy without obtaining advance written approval.
Now, we all know that certain states might have their own MLS policies and might have to adopt that policy at a formal meeting of their governing body. And so all of this is going to take some time, not a lot of time, but for it to filter down to local MLSs probably.
Right, right. And so the next section, D, addresses that point that within 5 days, NAR is now to direct their member boards to adopt the modified VOW policy. And here they're given within 90 days after the entry to do that. I guess that would put it into September of 2008, around there.
Well, I know next week, June of 2008, I'm going to the California Association of Realtors Directors meetings in Sacramento, and I'm a member of the MLS committee. And I would not be surprised if one of the action items of the California Association of Realtors MLS committee and of the board of directors would be to adopt this modified vow policy for the CAR model MLS rules.
Yes, and I would bet that from now until that time, their legal division and other divisions are going through word by word, just like we're going through here with the final judgment and also with the modified vow policy. The order says that the NAR is not only to direct that they adopt the policy, but they are to maintain, act consistently with, and enforce rules implementing it. So there's going to be a lot of attention as to what are the implementing rules that the member boards come up with. And it says that NAR shall direct member boards not to adopt, maintain, or enforce any rule or practice that NAR would be prohibited from adopting, maintaining, or enforcing.
So it's pretty much, these are the rules.
This is it.
NAR cannot change them or adopt them without permission of the Department of Justice, and neither can local MLSs. When I say boards, neither can MLSs make changes that are inconsistent with these modified VOW rules.
Right, and I think this is the part that the Department of Justice likes, is because they now have an ability to enforce compliance all the way down to the member board level, and they can do it, through the NAR requiring at a higher level.
And they can't change it. Nobody can change it without first going back to the Department of Justice.
Mm-hmm.
And then to put some teeth into that, the next required conduct is that if in fact somebody does try to change it, if a local MLS or regional MLS tries to change it, then NAR is required to withdraw their errors and omission insurance that protects that MLS. And so most MLSs don't want to jeopardize their errors and omission insurance coverage that is provided to them by the National Association of Realtors, and NAR is directed to pull that back if in fact a local MLS or regional MLS tries to modify these rules inconsistent with the judgment.
Yeah, and that puts a serious weight on the shoulder of the member boards that decide not to comply because the loss of that insurance. Historically, can you remember back to the days of sub-agency? The last time I heard about this is when some of the MLSs were saying, well, we're going to do away with sub-agency, and NAR's response was, well, our MLS rules require it, and if you're going to do away with it, then you're probably going to lose coverage under our insurance policy. So that requires some heavy thinking from directors.
Yeah, this is really very interesting, actually, that anybody can set up an MLS. Mm-hmm. Anybody can set up a service to gather listings. One of the things that makes realtor organization MLSs different and unique is that the National Association of Realtors has set up what we refer to as model rules, and it has created an MLS handbook with many, many hours of work by volunteers and legal staff to create what is believed to be the best way to run MLSs within an organization. And so NAR has model rules and an MLS handbook. As a matter of fact, you should go look at the model rules in the MLS handbook and just go to realtor.org, http://realtor.org, and search for MLS. And what you'll notice is that there are MLS model rules and MLS handbook. And now if local MLSs and regional MLSs decide when they set up their MLS that they'll set them up compliant with the NAR model rules, that they're then eligible for NAR and errors and omission insurance, which is a very valuable asset. As a matter of fact, if you sit on a board of directors or a governing body of an MLS, you probably want to make sure that your MLS has this errors and omission insurance. And once again, required conduct, if your MLS tries to change these rules and not consistent, change the rules so that they're not consistent with this judgment, then NAR is required by this judgment to withdraw your MLS errors and omission insurance. And if you're a director, you probably would not want that to happen.
Right. So failure to adopt would be considered under these rules to be a refusal, then triggering that penalty of the insurance. Also, suppose you have a situation where a member board does decide to come up with rules, but they come up with rules that involve prohibited conduct. And so there's another step in here in which that could also trigger the loss of the coverage under the insurance policy if they come up with rules that are inconsistent and the Department of Justice notifies NAR, and NAR can use this kind of lever. So I think that, from the enforcement point of view, the Department of Justice has a lot of provisions that they like here. Another one that is unusual, the first time I've seen it, is they've started the designation of an Antitrust Compliance Officer. NAR is going to be required now to have
New staff person. New staff. That's what we need.
responsibility for educating member boards about the antitrust laws and for achieving full compliance.
You know the government likes to just add bodies, right?
They got them here. And not only that, but they not only have new rules that they'll come up with under the compliance officer, but also they'll have to maintain communications of any non-compliance. They have reporting requirements to the Department of Justice, and they also, the compliance officer will ensure that the member boards who own a multiple listing service are provided briefing materials.
So this is not local MLSs and regional MLSs that have to have a compliance officer. NAR is mandated now that NAR must have a staff person or have somebody that is designated as the compliance officer whose job it is to educate, maybe have seminars, and reporting requirements. NAR now has reporting requirements to the Department of Justice.
Yeah, you mentioned seminars. One of the requirements is to hold an annual program for NAR member boards and their council. So they want to educate the local council also as to antitrust laws.
So annually now we can be expecting to see these kinds of programs coming from NAR.
Right, and annually at the conference they have a full day session for board councils anyway. So now they're going to integrate the antitrust into that.
I wonder how long these sessions will be. It doesn't indicate that it has to be an hour or a 2 hour. How many hours of continuing education are required? That doesn't seem to be covered here.
No, and like we talked about, there are going to be things which aren't covered, more questions are going to be raised, and things are going to have to be implemented. But so there isn't a minimum requirement.
Yeah, so it's what would the Department of Justice deem adequate? Becomes the next question here with regard to this required conduct.
Right.
And we'll find out. And you know that NAR will err on the side of overdoing more than likely. And so there'll be plenty of opportunity for education and to make sure people understand this, because that's the way NAR does things.
Yeah, I mean, NAR already has some fine pamphlets on antitrust, but now it's even going to be a more concentrated effort to educate the members on that. Also, you're going to have to furnish the Department of Justice on a quarterly basis copies of any communications. So once again, they have the mechanism set for continual enforcement of this final judgment. Now, interestingly, they also require within 5 days that NAR shall provide in a prominent place, Realtor.org, a hyperlink to a web page which NAR has published copies of the final judgment.
Which we're dealing with right now.
Right, and already today on Realtor.org you can find the proposed final judgment.
And on Realtown.
And Realtown.
If you go to realtown.com, you can find the final judgment. As a matter of fact, we indicate at the beginning that we want you to have the final judgment in your hand as we discuss this, because it's good to have the documentation and be looking at it as we're looking at it.
Right. Right now we have the proposed final judgment, and in a few days when the final judgment comes out, we'll replace that. And those are located in the resource area that we have from Realtown. And also a copy of the Modified VOW Policy. And in addition, they require in the next publication of Realtor Magazine that they include these items of the final judgment and the Modified VOW Policy.
You know, John, I think that we ought to have in one of the banners on Real Talk a link to the Modified Policy and to the judgment periodically appearing on Real Talk as well. And for those of you that don't know, Real Talk is the oldest, longest running online real estate community. It's part of Realtown, and if you go to Realtown, you can subscribe to Real Talk, which has a web interface as well as email to you on a daily basis, conversations between realtors nationwide. Really more than nationwide, it's really international. So if you're not a member of Real Talk, you really want to take the opportunity to go to Realtown and sign up for Real Talk, which is the most well-read online real estate community. Real Talk.
How long have we been doing Real Talk, Saul?
Since about 1996. So it's the longest running.
Did we miss any days?
We haven't missed one day. Not one day. John Riley and myself, we are the moderators. We are there every single day. We discuss most of the posts. You might think we're crazy. Sometimes we think we are as well. But what the result has been, this great longevity in this online community.
So I echo that too, to sign up for Real Talk right off of realtown.com.
And let's go see the